Hi you guys, this is Allison hanging out in my space to craft, and let's make some cards. So I'm going on a cruise in a month or so, and it's a long cruise, and I started a Facebook page to get together with folks that are going to be joining us. And one of the activities somebody suggested was to do a little gift exchange. So we'll be put in groups of 8 people and we'll just trade little gifts from where we're from or something else. Well, I decided that I would make some little thank you cards. So each person will get a set of 3 little thank you cards. Well, I pulled out my stamps to find out what I had. I don't have that many thank you stamps that would work. I had this one big one, and then I have one tiny one. I also have these sort of nautical related stamps. Here's the little one that I'm going to use. So some of the cards will have a stamp, some will have a die cut, different things. So I wanted to make 6 different designs of 4 cards each, and then I'll divide those into groups of 3, so everybody will get 3 different card designs. So here I'm just sort of planning out what I'm going to do, looking for sentiments that might work or stamps that might work. Spoiler alert, I don't use this. I had thought about using the dolphin or something, but I ran out. I only needed to make 6 different designs, and I sort of let the papers that I had pulled help determine that. I looked for that die, that thanks die, and it's just too big to fit on a 3x3 card. I do have these dies, so I have a little boat die, but I think I end up stamping the boats instead of using the die. I have these great looking shell dies, and those are new, so I hadn't used them yet. And I think after you die cut them, you can, it has holes in the top, and so you can apply ink at that point. So I end up doing that, but that will be in video 2. So here in video 1, I do my first 2 cards, and that's because it just took me a while to get going, and I sort of introduce you to all the different papers that I've pulled. So I'm trying to use up scraps and really old stash. So I have these old Creative Memories photo mats. I have about 1,000 of them from different collections. So I'm going to try and use a few here. I don't get to use as many as I had hoped. Here's some nice green, and that ends up getting used. I have this paper with blue rectangles on it. I do use that in, also I think in video 2. I think that's video 2. And then this seagull paper with gold and blue seagulls on it, that's in video 2 also. So I make that work as well. And then this map paper, you'll see that here in video 1, along with these mats. And then this fun hexagon map paper that's a scrap from a scrapbook page I did back in the fall, and that's going to work beautifully as well. And then I have this shell paper, and I will make use of that in video 2. And it comes out really, really cute. And I use those shell die cuts with that page as well. This one is in video 2, and it's some old Creative Memories, just a light blue paper with some little gray sort of swirly stitch looking things on it, and it makes a real cute card. That is not, I'm going to use that with the rectangle paper. So now I'm finally ready to start scrapbooking. Not scrapbooking, card making. All right, let's get started. I have a plan. So my little cards are 3 by 3, and so I want a thin mat, so I'm going to cut the mat papers to 1/8 of an inch smaller. So that will be 2 7/8 by 2 7/8. This paper I cut initially at 2 7/8 and realized I need it even smaller. So I do end up trimming these even further to make sure that the mats will show. And then this is going to be 2 7/8 by 2 7/8 so that I get just a tiny 1/16 of an inch border. Now, my cards weren't all exactly the 3 by 3. I'm not sure why not, because I used 12 by 12 paper, but maybe that paper was a little generous, and so some of my cards are not perfect 3 by 3s, but they're close enough. So I do have to do some additional trimming occasionally. Because I didn't leave big margins, I'm trying to leave these tiny margins. So if it's a little off, then it may not show. So I'm just trying to make sure, and I'm picking papers that go with the different oranges. I switched this out because I didn't have the right color orange on that one piece of paper. So I just switched that out. So those are my 4 cards. And then I'm going to pick up the scraps that I have, and I'll have to pull some more turquoise scraps as well to then die cut the sentiment for them. So these are going to be pretty simple cards, just a die cut sentiment and then an embellishment. And I do pull one other, I think, green scrap. Not this one. That one's a little too turquoise. It's not the right color. Just going through my scrap bin, and this was a great way to use up some scraps because you didn't need big pieces of paper to do these things, even though I was doing 4 of each thing. So I can get the orange out of it, but then I need another color. So I'm going to pull this green, and that's going to work. So I'll go off and cut them and then come back. See how quick I was? Just kidding. Convenient editing. So I have my little thank yous. I'm just going to use my art glitter glue. And I also could have used and cut this onto the adhesive sheets, but I never think about it until after the fact, even though I do own those adhesive sheets. So then I just need to position each thank you where it fits best on the card. So, for example, if I'm doing a turquoise background, then I want to make sure that a turquoise little map piece is showing and I don't just cover it completely with the shadow. And then I also want to make sure that the map is reading properly. So in some cases, the map pieces are all in different orientations, but I just want to make sure that things make a little bit of sense. And who knows, we may have Australians and they can see the world from a different perspective. So I pulled out these Nouveau drops. Well, they're actually the scrapbook.com version of Nouveau drops. and I pulled out those to put on the purple ones. And then I have these little turquoise jewels, and I had 6 of them left, so that's perfect. And so I'm just double checking what I have and what I don't have, seeing what will work. So now it's just time to assemble. And I'm going to commit to these little liquid pearl drops. And I'm also not making any of these super dimensional, just because I've got to travel with them and I've got enough bulk in my luggage that if I can make these relatively flat, that'll be a benefit. So I was a little worried because there was a little, tip on these drops, but I flicked the bottom of them and that flattened them out really nicely. So if you struggle with that like I do, just a little tap on the back will usually organize it for you. And I'm just popping these jewels on here. And I think those came out really, really cute. Last card. And so those are the card bases. I do put them on the cards themselves before the end of video number 2. I just let these dry before I put them on. And now we can move on to card number 2. I'm going to cut out these hexagons. I show you, I cut the first one, and then I've cut the video so you don't have to watch me fussy cut 4 sets of these. But each one's a little bit different. It just depends on what I was able to cut out to try and optimize the use of the paper. Because once you cut, I was just making sure it was going to fit. Once you cut the gold frame of the hexagon, you can't use the hexagon next to it because it doesn't have a frame. So that's sort of what it will look like. You can see I've cut 4 of them now, and now I'm going to cut some mats. And again, that's the same size. I may have done 2 3/4 for these, so a little bit smaller than the other ones. So I had 3 green scraps, and then I go ahead and do 1 using this blue because I had run out of that green paper. All right, so it's just a matter of then figuring out where I can. So I'm going to glue these on first, and then I'm going to stamp and emboss the sentiment. And I think that I forget to turn the video back on for the end of this. But you will get the idea, and then I come back with the final. So I end up cutting the stamp in half so that I can do thank and you on 2 separate lines when I need to. Little cleanup of my desk before I start stamping, and I've pulled out this small stamp. It does fit on 2 lines, on a single line for some of them, but it doesn't fit for all of them. So here I'm like, oh, what do I do? Do I decide to cut it in half? And that is what I'm gonna do. So get out my stamping platform. I'm really glad at this point that I haven't already glued those cards down to my cards, or the bases. I did need to glue the dies down so that I knew exactly where to put my my stamp. So I just stamp it twice and then use some gold powder. And again, I forgot to use my non-stick powder. So here I get it out and remember it. It's a really bad idea to do that on top of your sticky mat because it takes away the sticky. So learn from my mistakes. And then I also have to be really careful not to nudge it because I'm not going off in heat embossing right after. So I've cut it in half so that I can position it. This all works really great. I do still have a little bit of gold embossing powder on it. I try and wipe as much off. They aren't perfect. You can tell they're homemade, but it's okay. All right, one more. So I use this sticky mat. It's just from like a Cricut sticky mat in my stamp platform to help me align things. So I don't have to go all the way down into the corner where sometimes it's harder to make the stamps press down. And so then I can be consistent. So I forgot to turn the video back on after I heat embossed these. So I heat embossed them and then glued this down to the card, and then I used these Nuvo drops, crystal drops, and this color is mustard gold, and it's really the perfect color to go with this. So on most of them I just did 3 little dots. And on this one, I had more blue showing, so I decided to do 5 little dots. So here is my first set of cards. I think we'll call it there for today. So I got 2 sets and 2 sets of 4, and I need to do 6 sets of 4. So I think next time I may do a little prep work and then be able to do all four different styles of card for the next video. So tune back in tomorrow. Thanks a lot, you guys.